Hey, folks, what's going on? Hey, here we are, 8th week, and I'm glad to see you. Even though I can't see you, I can see you guys in the chat. Just want to say, hey, appreciate you guys. Vicky Joy is taking a personal day today, so she won't be with us, but we do have a special guest. And folks, let me just say, as much as I love you and appreciate you, and I'm excited to do these shows, I think I can speak on behalf of the team here at Through the Black. We are glad that this is the last week, and we're going to be taking a break. It has been a long 8 weeks. We're going to be taking a couple weeks off, and then we're coming back in January, and we're already working on those shows and getting everything lined up. Let me just say this, that we have a conference coming up March 31st, April 1st, and it's going to be pretty sweet. Okay. So I just had a conversation the other day with a pastor from the church, Pastor Neil Peterson, and he is just excited to help us put this on, and it's going to be some good stuff. So you can go to throughtheblack.com. Yes, there, and see the link, Out of the Darkness. Click on that link. It'll take you to a place where you can buy tickets for the conference. Greg Reed's going to be there, Pastor Mike Spalding. It's going to be Coach Dave Daubermeyer, myself, Colleen James, Vicky Joy. Okay, so it's going to be some good stuff, and we're working on surprises and things, and something going on the night before and a couple hours before the conference. Lots of stuff. So stay tuned, and we will let you know a lot more about that. But anyway, hey, a couple weeks ago, we had a guest on, and we had an amazing show talking to our friend Chris from Sin City, Chris Taylor. We talked about gods and monsters. This guy is like a walking encyclopedia when it comes to AI, comic books, all of these, just exposing just all the connections and all the satanic connections with the comic books, the movies, the superheroes. And as many times as I talk to him, I learn something new every single time. So we've been having him on the show for years. He goes back to the Jared days. So Chris, welcome back to the show. Thank you, my friend, for hanging out again. Guys, we had a little bit of a mix-up tonight, but we're here with you. And I thought that Chris was coming on my show, and then Chris thought I was coming on his show, and well, here we are. We're on my show. So next time we got to go on his. But Chris, thanks for hanging out tonight, man.
Oh, for sure. No problem. I'm excited to get this thing going.
Well, let's do it. I think tonight's topic is going to be something that touches every home, every family, and people are going to be able to relate with, the things we're going to talk about, the connections that we're going to make.
Right.
So I'm going to let you just kind of take the wheel, and I'm going to follow your lead.
All right.
You're going to have lots of questions.
So last time we kind of jumped all over the place, a little bit of my background, how I used to be into comic books and how I was just flooded with sci-fi TV shows and movies, Flash Gordon and all these wonderful stories from back in the 70s, 80s, and beyond. So what I like to uncover are kind of like the themes that run through a lot of these, whether it's alien movies or superhero movies or whatnot, because a lot of the themes are definitely not new, because you could trace a lot of them back to the Garden of Eden. But it seems new to us, right? Because this is our generation living now, and we're kind of overlapping with the older, and then we're overlapping with the newer generation. So when we see some of these themes, we're like, oh, wow, that's cool. That's deep. But it's not, anything new when it comes to like the gods, and they have these superpowers, and they could fly, they could cast lightning from their hands and all this stuff. We can get through some of that tonight. And again, I just want to let the audience know that, this is not legalism. We're not trying to tell you what to watch, what to listen to, what to read or whatever. But, there are lines that you need to draw in your own life. Like, say, for instance, just on the topic of music for a second, I used to listen to everything under the sun except for like rock and roll and stuff. I had a little bit of that, but All the rap stuff
What
from.
about Earth, Wind, and Fire? Did you ever listen to Earth, Wind, and Fire?
No, I wasn't. No, I had friends that did though.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
and I had music on my ears all the time. I mean, just like you see these headphones, that's how I went to school, walking to school, back from school, whatever. And then when I got a sound system in my car, oh my goodness, that was it. I would drive everywhere, boom, boom, boom. You just hear the lyrics coming out of my car and the loud bass. I was one of the guys that you get irritated at at the stoplight. Okay.
You're one of the guys that would bounce like we would bounce like when you pulled up next to us.
Yeah, yeah. So I say that because it led me into wanting to do the rap music, and I did that, whatever. But I was that guy that just listened to music constantly until I had a demonic attack in 1994. I was listening to a lot of Wu Tang Clan and R. Kelly and stuff like that. And at this moment, I had started going back to church, and this is the first time in my life. Well, not the first time. The sleep paralysis thing happened a few times, but not often enough for me to be scared. And then I'm going back to church now, and it seems like somebody got mad at me, like a spirit or something. They would start holding me down at night. And again, I'm around. I think I was around 24, 25, somewhere around there, or maybe even younger than that, probably 23. It was 1994. Let's put it like that. So I was 22, right? So I'm talking to church people about this stuff, and no one had an answer for me. They said I'm giving too much glory to the devil because I'm talking about it too much. I'm asking too many questions and whatnot. This was a Baptist church, and so I went to the source I should have went to in the beginning, and that was God. So I prayed a prayer like, I don't know why all this stuff is happening to me. It started like this. It would happen like say once a week, and then it got more frequent to where it happened every other day after seeking counsel. And so one night I had a dream, and I know this is gonna sound, out there, but it happened. I had a dream, and there was a Wu Tang record playing, and it was a Grave Diggers. Grave Diggers was a part of the Wu Tang Clan, and so it was Diary of a Mad Black Woman or something like that. And the beat started playing, and then and the record started skipping and scratched, and then a voice said, "It's the music that you're listening while these things are happening to you." That was it. I woke up, and that wasn't the end of the sleep paralysis as far as the occurrences. So the last time it happened, I could tell it was multiple beings in the room, and through I saw a manifestation. I knew it was like two or three holding me down, and then I saw a manifestation, a dark, like wispy cloud coming up behind my door from out, like from the window to the back of my door. And you couldn't see any eyes, but you saw a humanoid shape. And all I could do was yell out, Jesus. And they all fled instantly.
So
Right.
yeah, and Chris, I'm sure you're going to get to this, but let me jump in here. So Wu Tang Clan, what were their influences? Didn't some of them claim to be Muslim?
Yeah, but you have to break that down in so many ways. Okay, so, you know, Farrakhan and on all these people are a nation of Islam,
Right.
but it's a pseudo Islamic religion. They take pieces of Islam and pieces of Christianity and other things and then blend it together. They even believe in a mother plane, that some UFO that was built on Earth, it left and it's going to come back. And so all of these rappers in Wu Tang Clan are 5 percenters. A guy named, I think his name is Clarence X, broke off from Malcolm X because they had disagreements. Then he made up this pseudo religion. So when you hear them say Allah, they're not really talking about the real Allah of Islam or the Muslims. They're talking about arm, leg, arm, head. You are God. Knowledge of self, meaning knowledge that you are a God and we are little gods. That's what their whole belief system is. You can get broken down in different ways. So you don't know what these guys are either praying over the music or the dark influences in the studio. And just to take a real quick side note, if you don't believe that some of these studios are occupied by spirits, one of our friends, a group of people at my one of my former churches, they had a gospel group and they went to a reggae studio and to record this song. And as they were let into the studio, one of them got bumped to the side by something that wasn't there. Well, it seemed like it wasn't there.
Hmm.
So these things are there influencing whatnot. Now, as far as the demons following the music, I don't know if that's actually true, but they're all around us. And as we're giving attention to their product, they seem to want us to keep us away from God, keep away from us away from the Bible, keep us away from living holy, and definitely keeping us from getting saved because hell was created for the devil and his angels.
Hmm.
And through sin, we end up going there, but we still have a way out through Jesus Christ. And so, I don't know if these beings know I have a call on my life or anything like that, but they sure didn't want me to go to church. So immediately as I started going back to church, boom, sleep paralysis started happening to me. So, and
Well, and
saying,
we've heard this a lot. Like a lot of the calls that we get are people that all of a sudden decided to get involved in ministry in some way, or to get their life, back right with the Lord, or then we hear about these attacks, whether it's through sleep paralysis or just other areas of the life. So yeah, definitely.
absolutely. So back to the comic books now. So we talked about last time the boom of the comic book movies, the genre exploding since around the sort of the mid 2000s, but it was building up before that with you know uh Daredevil movies and stuff like that. But those weren't blockbusters. They did okay, but they weren't like $1 billion movies. And as the music industry started to balloon because it started going global, especially in the Chinese market, we saw these Marvel movies making $1 billion, even the ones that weren't that great, right? Movies like Ant-Man or what's a $1 billion one? Captain Marvel. No one
Hmm.
really liked that movie, but it made $1 billion, and it was chucked between two of the better movies, right?
Right, right.
So let's let me break down one that a lot of people are very into. There's Black Panther, right? So I'm going to talk about the first one. Black Panther is more into to like a shaman, and it goes into ancestor worship because they have to take. Okay, so the Egyptian goddess Bast, the panther goddess, came, and this is in the comic book lore too. So it's not just the movies.
Hmm.
Uh, Came and to show them where gave them the heart shaped herb, which is an hallucinogen, a flower that helps you to get into a altered state of consciousness. And so when you're becoming a new Black Panther, you have to take this herb, the liquid from it, and you go into like the Masonic um, uh, rebirth ritual, right? Their version of being born again, right? And so they lay back and they get into the altered state of consciousness. I believe they cover you in dirt. In the Masonic lodge, they'll put you in a coffin or something, and sometimes you do sexual acts like masturbation and stuff to have this rebirth, and you tell all your secrets or whatever, right? So in the movie now, when you get into this altered state, you go into the ancestral plane, which we would call the astral plane, right? And there, the ancestors would guide you on what to do next. And so when you become a new Black Panther, all of the powers and abilities of all the prior ancestors, Black Panthers, are endowed upon you. So you're more powerful than any of the predecessors, right? So that's one thing. So ancestor worship is a big part of Black Panther and a lot of African culture, the real African culture. And when this movie came out, because it came out in the era of identity politics and stuff like that. So a lot of the Black community gravitated towards it. Like there wasn't ever another Black superhero or anything like that. When we had who's the guy that runs Shield? Oh my gosh,
Uh,
Nick
Samuel
Fury.
L. Jackson.
Yeah, yeah. So, and we
Nick
had
Fury. Yeah.
we had Power Fist, I believe, and a couple others. So it
Okay.
wasn't like the first thing, but normies, the people that don't really know, they think it's, oh, look, we got a superhero, and they started to ridicule on white people for going to see the movie. It's our movie, dude. You don't need to go see it. Whatever, just stupid stuff, right?
Well, I
And
remember the hype around Black Panther, and the hype was so goofy that I'm like, I don't even know if I'm interested in seeing this because they just got so goofy with it, man.
right, absolutely. So we have the Egyptian goddess, we have the ancestor worship, and Black Panther. Uh, they have the vibranium, which is not a real metal, but that's what they use, and they have another one, a alternate called untanium, and this is like going into the idea of opposites, the yin and the yang, and but the yin and the yang, it's not just about opposites, it's about the power, the force, the elements. It's witchcraft, okay? So this could be told in or explained in other ways, like in Hinduism it's the Tao, in martial arts it's the Chi. Then you have chaos magic, you have sigil magic, you have all these different variants around the world, but they all mean the same thing, because, like, say for instance, martial arts, you have the dragon that's over most of the martial arts. In the book of the Bible, the dragon is Satan, the serpent of old. And what you see is the dragon is this spirit over all the animal spirits, right? You remember the movie Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon,
Hmm.
right? The crouching tiger is you. The dragon is the most powerful spirit. So you're gonna
Well,
bow to.
Chris, let me bring it full circle again. Weren't like because you mentioned Wu Tang, we kind of started out there. Weren't they really into the martial arts and a lot of that philosophy?
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. And and till today, I don't listen to their music anymore, but I dip in, and every now and then I see they have a TV show, full 2 seasons. They have a couple documentaries out, and it's always about this martial art thing, even though they're five percenters, right?
Hmm.
Um, eh,
Well,
that's
it seems like they don't really have any rules, you know. They're,
yeah.
they're, they're preaching a belief or a philosophy, but they can do whatever they want. They're elite, you know.
Right, right. I had a friend when I was younger, around the same time of 1994. He was going to join the movement, and he said, I was like, "Why are you going to join this thing?" He's like, "Well, I could smoke, I could drink, I could." I'm like, "So you're pretty much getting allowance to do your sin?" I was like, "I don't know about that, man. I think you need to go to church and see God." And he didn't join it, but that's another story. Um, so that's a common theme amongst a lot of these superhero shows, is ancestor worship, Egyptology. You have like in DC, you have the Hawkman and Hawk Girl. They're going back into the Egyptian Isis and Horus, that sort of thing. You know about when two people meet, soulmates,
Hmm.
right? Their story is about soulmates. Hancock, remember that movie?
Yes.
Will Smith.
Will Smith.
I remember the two that were always trying to get together and they just can't get together. Well, it's a metaphor for what happened with Samaramis and Nimrod and Tammuz, right? And the son got killed, and um, they buried the body parts in 13 different places, and they found 12. I believe that's accurate to how the story goes. The woman, Samaramis or Isis, same story, different culture. And so they found the body parts except for the one part, which was the phallic, Bale's shaft, the Washington Monument,
Right.
the obelisk, the same thing you see in Egypt, the same thing, like I said, the Washington Monument. You see them in graveyards, you see them in Masonic imagery. It's always a penis, right? And so she would, in one story, she would have sex with the penis, and out of that would come something else, another child or whatever. So they can't get together because they couldn't find the penis. And when you see like in the space program the other day, they had a dragon going up to the other ship. I can't
Mhm.
remember the name of the other ship, but this was in the space program, and it reflects the same story because the space program has a lot of occult attributes to it. So that's another two characters, right? Hot man, hot girl. You have Superman. Now, it'll take too long to break down the entirety of Superman, but when oh, you know what? Sorry. Going back to Black Panther for a second, when I was
Mhm.
going into the whole community, um, they were saying this is our character and all that stuff. You shouldn't go watch it. Let us watch it, blah, blah, blah. And that one, I believe it made $1 billion as well. And people were assuming or acting like this character was created by a black person, but it wasn't. It was made by I can't remember if it was Stan Lee or whatnot, but the way the identity politics at the time was so gross that they're so blind to see that it wasn't made by a black person, you know? So I just wanted to put that out there because it was really
Yeah.
ridiculous at the time. And even with the new Black Panther movie, um, the sister Shuri became the Black Panther. Spoiler alert, sorry. Um, but it's all about the same ancestor worship. They didn't
Right.
have they didn't have the heart-shaped herb anymore because Killmonger destroyed it in the last movie. And so with Namor, not Namor, but Namor, they changed the whole character, and it was more like a Aztec Mayan type of thing, where he's pretty much Quetzalcoatl, but he didn't come from space, right? The serpent god. You will see serpent imagery all around the planet because snake cults are all around the planet, and they were even more in the ancient days. So Shuri is in a dilemma because Namor is so powerful he could pretty much wipe out Wakanda. Why we don't know, but he's powerful. His followers are powerful, and because nothing is really explained about how he got his power, it's like I mean, it is explained a little bit, but it's not really justified because it's switched up from the comic book. So he's supposed to be an Atlantean. And so the Atlanteans go back into the 10 god kings of the pre-flood world. And this is what Plato believed, that they were 10 god kings. And that's a part of his version of the communism, as we would call it today, right? So we'd have the class that would be enslaved, and we have the powerful elites. And so he believed that these people would be coming back. And it's peculiar that in the Bible, you have 10 kings that give their power over to the beast, right? And so that's just a side note for everybody that didn't see the connection there. So
So, Chris, I made a note here, and again, so it's there's so much to cover. There's so many things to talk about, but
yeah,
and we can come back to this. I have it written down here, but Moon Knight. I don't know if you're going to get to this. This character I thought was really fascinating, and I thought this show. This was around the time that I kind of quit watching these shows, but I did. This is one of the last ones that I watched. Was
mhm,
Moon Knight, and I thought they did a really good job of illustrating multiple personalities
yeah.
in this show. I don't know if you saw it or not, but
I didn't watch it, but I listened to people comment on it, and pretty much Moon Knight, in the comic book version, he's pretty much Batman, just a
yeah,
Marvel version of Batman, but he's
right,
more
right.
mercenary and all these things. So they kind of gave him that he had multiple personalities in the comic book, but it seems like they gave him more. Um, so I didn't watch it, so I can't necessarily comment too much, but I know that they did bring in a few Egyptian gods and goddesses in there, and one of them was a little woke, the female goddess, and
Hmm.
whatever, right? So he's a little bit like the guy Legion. You remember there was a TV show called Legion?
Yeah, I didn't see it, but
Yeah,
I remember seeing the ads for it. You're gonna have to remind me what it was about.
yeah. Legion is one of the X-Men. Not a
Okay.
well-known member, but he's one. And so they decided to make this. I believe it was on the Fox because they had the rights. So they decided to make. I think it ran 2 seasons. But I'm just gonna say this: it was very trippy. Okay, um, but he is pretty much the comic book manifestation of the Legion demons that was thrown out of the man into the pigs. That's where the whole
Excuse me.
inspiration comes from. So you think that he's just a guy that has issues, blah blah blah, but he
There we
the
go. Yeah.
monster coming after him, it's two evil forces fighting against each other. People, when you see these so-called heroes, they're not really heroes. They use everything that God is against, and then they
Right.
put a more evil force against them. So like, oh wow, look at this. He's not that bad. Look at this guy. He looks more satanic.
Well, and then
Um,
we've talked about this where, for example, I mean, maybe this is not a good example, but Doctor Strange had to use the evil or the dark magic, to
uh-huh.
stop the witch or the red lady, whatever her name is,
Right,
Scarlet.
Scarlet Witch. Okay, since you went there, let me go there for a second. All right. So I can't remember the name of the guy that created this character. Okay, but in fact, I might have it here in this book. Doctor Strange, in his original iteration, is none other than Aleister Crowley.
Wow.
Yes, that's why he's so dark. That's why he's the master magician. In
Well,
fact,
it shouldn't be surprising because he influenced so much music. So when was the first issue? When did the first issue of Doctor Strange come out?
give me a second here because it's a lot of
60s or
information.
70s, maybe.
Yeah, around there. Yes, definitely, because that was the time. The biggest, the comic book artist that created him was heavily influenced by Aleister Crowley. And in fact, so much that when you go and look at the original manifestations of this character, you put him next to Crowley, it's almost identical.
So, Chris, I'm gonna let you finish, but similar to way Wonder Woman was influenced by Margaret Sanger, right?
Yes,
Okay,
Margaret Sanger and a girlfriend that the guy got, Mr. Marston.
yeah,
Um, yeah, because he was into bondage, and you see that all over the early Wonder Woman comics and stuff. Grant
right.
Morrison did one of the neural runs. Grant Morrison is a guy that I spoke about last time, that he went and sought spirits to write his comic books, and they gave him the ability to do so. And he's one of the biggest comic book names today, right? So Doctor Strange, in the multiverse of madness, the idea of the multiverse comes from Buddhism. You'll hear people say it's a from Buddhism. They say it's a bigger, larger, reality than that we have. And then Buddhism came out of Hinduism. So in Hinduism, when you look at some of the artwork, you see the infinity symbol, right? That eight on the side, and that also ties into evolution. So what you see in some of the artwork is this evolutionary thing, like what people would call karma. It's not really about what you think it's about. Karma is about reincarnation. So that's the loop. You die, you come back. You die, you come back. You die, you come back. However that is, as a bee, as a man, as a horse, whatever. And so the idea of the multiverse comes from that idea,
You
right?
know, Chris, I want to throw this in here because when you think about something like reincarnation, it's like, okay, who invented this? Where did this come from? But I remember before I understood biblical concepts and the truth of the gospel, as a little kid, I I wondered what happened when you died.
Hmm.
And I don't know if I came up with this or if it was implanted. I don't know what kind of influences were around me spiritually at that time, but I kind of thought in my own head, well, maybe you just start over again, you
Right.
know?
Hmm.
And I've heard people in different cultures where there's not necessarily the type of Satanism that we're familiar with, okay, or
Right.
rituals that we're familiar with, but they came up with rituals, on their own, so to speak. But I wanted to mention that as we're talking about, reincarnation and karma and all that stuff. It's like last week we talked about this, we talked about this song. It was really new agey called Turtles All the Way Down.
Yeah.
And all of this stuff, when it comes down to it, is just basically people avoiding being accountable to their sin.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Just to piggyback on what you just said, most people throughout our existence, from the time of creation to now, know they don't think they know there's an afterlife. The idea of atheism came along around the time of evolution. You don't find much. I don't know if you can find any atheists before that, but the atheism really flourished off of the thought of evolution because now you believe you're an animal, you don't have no consequences, whatever, so that's an important point right there, because even before I really knew who Jesus was, I knew there was an afterlife. I knew that when I die, I'm not just, it's not, this doesn't make any sense. There's no point to it all. And when you
Mhm.
have no point to it all, there's no accountability. I might as well just do what I want to do. What's the first law of Satanism? Do what thou wilt, right? So just to get back on Doctor Strange for a minute, I'm reading the book. Let's see. Our gods wear spandex. There
Okay,
we go.
yeah.
I can't. There we go. All right. Now this isn't the only book I have about this stuff, but it's a good reference book. He says here, although fate never really caught on. Oh, sorry. Yeah, he talks about Doctor Fate. That's the one that we just saw in the Black Adam movie, right? And so he died around the end of the movie. And so he says, although fate never caught on, he inspired a character that hit it big in the 60s. Like you said, Doctor Strange, Master of the Mystic Arts, created in 1963 by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko. Dr. Stephen Strange is a gifted neurosurgeon whose career is ruined in a car accident left with a tumor that prevents him holding a scalpel. Strange hits the skids and roams the earth, searching for a cure. His search brings him to the Ancient One, a fabled magician who lives in the high of the Himalayas. Although the magician does not offer a cure, after a sequence of events, he initiates Strange into the mystic arts. The reborn doctor embarks on a series of memorable adventures dressed in a stylized pseudo Asian, um, what's this word? Pashtik of stock comic elements and wielding the all seeing eye of Argamotto, a powerful amulet he wears around his neck. Appropriately, Strange makes his home at 177A Black Street in New York, Greenwich Village. So he says here Lee claimed that the character was inspired by an old radio show called
Yeah.
Chandu the Magician, which is partially true, right? But he was probably hoping his readers were too young to remember Dr. Fate, and Steve Ditko left the feature in 1966. Strange appeared in a series of apocryphal yarns of wildly varying quality. So I found out later that it wasn't just um, you know, Dr. Fate. It was Aleister Crowley. Okay.
Yeah.
And so what you have in this movie, the multiverse of madness, is you have, let's just call it Crowley, right? Doctor Strange meeting up with the Scarlet Witch. Aleister Crowley had his Scarlet women that he would sleep with and sometimes have long relationships with. Scarlet Witch, she is pretty much the woman that rides the beast from Revelation, dressed in
Right.
scarlet, and right. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. It's just when you know your Bible and then you see these parallels, you're like, oh
Yeah.
snap,
So,
So
and then also I want to say something about the comic book stylized look at him. He reminds me of Jack Parsons, look wise.
yeah, you're right. You're right. I'm not sure if the influence is there like automatically,
Right.
but he does remind me of him too. And he was a pal of Crowley too, right?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, yeah. So, and there's more, and there's more, and there's more as far as the character of Doctor Strange. Should Christians be watching? That's between you and God. If I'm watching that movie, it's really for research, and I'm not making that up just as an excuse. It's the first one was full of occult magic that God called an abomination. Okay. The second one is just an escalation of that. How do you justify if this guy's such a hero, how do you justify him astral projecting, just like Scarlet Witch did in the movie? She had astral projected into these other dimensions, realities, or whatnot, to kidnap kids that weren't her own. The kids that she created in WandaVision were created out of chaos magic. Remember, we talked about the trauma from some of these superheroes and how they get their power and stuff like that. Well, she was so traumatized by the death of her artificial intelligence husband, a being that is not real, that she's having sexual relations with and in love with, and he dies because Thanos, aka an allegory for God, we'll get to that in a minute, takes the stone out of Vision's head. Just for people that don't know, I just want to put those pieces together.
So, and for our listeners, we did a show on chaos magic, the very first show of last season, and um, this, I mean, understanding people will hear, okay, Scarlet Witch does chaos magic. What does that mean? You know, it's just like you kind of like make it up as you go along. And she created this alternate reality, okay,
Mhm.
in the Disney series.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, WandaVision. So if you know, chaos magic in the real world, okay, is is a similar thing. Obviously, people cannot manifest, these domes and put all these people into a zombie like state, but it's the chaos magicians believe in this power like this and this butterfly effect. I interviewed a few of them a couple months ago. Anyway,
Yeah, and to add to what you're saying, the same concept of chaos magic is it goes right back to the yin and the yang, and it goes right back to the book The Secret, where you can manifest things by calling them into existence, even if you're a Christian, because they'll use biblical verses, twist them on their head, and say, "Look, God said you could do this. See, it's right there in the Bible, but it's not. They're
right.
taking a verse
Well,
out of
and
context."
Christians and pastors will these what do you call it? This prosperity gospel.
Same
That's
thing.
the same thing, right?
Exact same thing, because the prosperity gospel movement, not all of the charismatic movement, but from the onset of where it came from, was influenced by Hinduism. Most people don't know the history. That's why they get kind of confused. Is this Christianity or not? Can I manifest things or not? Whatever. That's a whole nother story. So, okay, where was I? Chaos magic. So she created this reality, where she made a whole, like you said, a dome, over a neighborhood that she helped to mind control through magic, right? So I don't want to go through the whole story, but that's what happened. And then another person, the black version of Captain Marvel, uh, came in as she's going through the dome, the force field, let's call it that. She now gets her powers through the trauma of that transition, right?
Right,
And so now she has these occult powers, and she could shoot beams and all this stuff. So anyway, Monica Rambeau is her name.
right.
So um anyway, Scarlet Witch, she gets defeated and she goes off. They really can't defeat her, really. She left on her own. But the kids now, the point of me going through all that, the kids disappeared. The fake Vision sent his memory into a clone of Vision that the military made, and so then he disappears, and all of this boohoo haha crying is going on. And so anyway, now we get to the multiverse of madness, and so she's trying to get these kids back, but the only way for her to get them back is going into these realities that were created in the TV show Loki, right? And I'll get to that in a second. There's so much to cover.
Yeah, there
So
is. And Chris, um, remember Iron Man? I mean,
yeah,
what about going back to the simple days of Iron Man? That was a good movie. You know what I mean?
yeah, but I'm gonna let you down on Iron Man too.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, this is a big deal because this franchise is the biggest franchise ever. I mean, you
Yes,
can think about Star Wars, you can think about Harry Potter, you can think about Lord of the Rings, okay? Those all had a series of movies, but we're getting into the like 30 plus movies and shows that are connected now, and there's no end in sight.
right.
And it just gets darker and darker. I mean, what the place where they started, and yeah, I know there's mythology behind that and connected to it, but I'm talking about the understanding of, okay, this guy built a suit, and every kid can, even though the character is super flawed, right?
Right.
Um, Everybody can be like, oh man, that's kind of cool. I'd like to have an iron suit. We went from that to where we're at right now.
Absolutely. And I can't wait I kind of can't wait. Now that you brought it up, I can't wait. So, okay, so let's continue with Multiverse of Madness, right? So here, they have a character, America Chavez, that comes in. I'm going to be careful how I say it since it's going to be on YouTube. If you go back and watch the movie very carefully, you have a lot of alphabet people symbology in there.
Mhm.
Okay, you had two mothers. Okay, they got swept away because she threw a bee sting in her. Trauma, her powers manifested, and they got sucked into another universe. And from there on, no, even before that, she had a pin on her chest the whole time. That's the flag
The
of the
rainbow.
petals.
Yeah.
No, it's
Oh,
other
the
colors.
the other one. Yeah.
Yeah, the whole time, because I'm like, I didn't watch it the first couple of times. And I was like, let me watch this movie again. There's got to be something I'm missing. I was like, boom, there it is. It's in your face the whole time, but no one says anything about it. But when you do a freeze frame, like when she comes up close, they show it right into the camera, right in the front, so that you could see it, but it's subliminal. So that flag is there the whole time. So that she's a side note right now. So uh when the movie opens up, America Chavez is getting chased by an alternate Doctor Strange, and he tries to kill her. And he gets sucked into Earth's dimension, right, by some big old demon. So anyway, the point I'm bringing that up is that uh, Doctor Strange and America Chavez buried him in a on top of a roof of some building. Later on in the movie, now as we get to the climax of the movie, Doctor Strange astral projects into the dead body, and now you have this dark, zombie-looking Doctor Strange that also controls these demonic entities that came up in the movie. And you have to wonder, like, what does that feel like to enter a dead corpse? That is nothing but the most disgusting satanic, one of the most disgusting satanic things you can even manifest in your mind, but it just flies over people's head, and so Scarlet Witch is defeated and all this blah blah blah. So I don't know if I need to say more about that. I thought that was I had Christians coming to me. I went to see Doctor Strange. It was the darkest thing I've ever seen. And I'm like, really? You don't say. That's Crowley.
Why were you surprised? Yeah.
Yeah. You know who else is Crowley? Not to go off on this one yet, but Lex Luthor.
Lex Luthor.
Yes.
Interesting. Well, yeah, a bald head. I
Yeah.
mean, visually.
Yeah. And this book talks about it as well. So let's go to Iron
Wow.
Man real quick. Go to Iron Man real quick.
Okay.
So Iron Man, I'm not gonna go to the origins. I'm just gonna go to the movies. Iron Man, and you can look this up right now if you don't believe me. Iron Man is the Antichrist. Okay, they have articles, secular articles, that say that Marvel pretty much admits that Iron Man is the Antichrist, at least in the movies, right? He is a he wasn't taken initially from any as far as his look, any occult characters or demons or anything like that. It was a couple movie stars. His face is patterned off of a couple movie stars and whatnot. And so I don't have a direct link to some god or anything like that. But you could also look at him like sort of like a Tesla. Tesla, you know, he had all these um, secrets to electricity, inventions of that we don't use today because it's being covered up from us. But Tesla was into some spiritism. Okay, he did contact some beings. We're not going to get into all that. So he is the Antichrist, Iron Man, Tony Stark. And if you go back to all of the Marvel movies from Iron Man, well, Incredible Hulk was the start of it, but then Iron Man came, and then you watch all of the ones with Iron Man in it, and you'll see if you know your Bible and you know symbolism, you will see all of the times that they're telling you he is an Antichrist, right? And this manifests, it starts to manifest in Avengers Infinity War, right? Even on the poster, you could bring it up right now, Tom. On the poster, he's spread out in a cross position, like Jesus,
Mm.
right? And so I'm gonna bring it home in a second, um, because Avengers: Infinity War is taken from the comic book, the Infinity Gauntlet. It came out, I believe, in the late '80s, right? I had the comic book, and the person that did that comic book was also into some Crowley stuff. And so anyway, in that comic book, Mephisto is talking to Thanos. Thanos is an allegory, like I said earlier, for God. It's a Gnostic tale, right? And so Mephisto, who is Marvel's version of Satan, they have a bunch of versions of Satan, but you know what I mean.
Right, right.
He's dominion is hell, and so he's asking Thanos.
We got the picture up there now, Chris.
There you go, right there. Boom. He's in a cross position. Why? Is it just cool art? No. And Thanos up there, he's trying to get the power to become a god, right? And so where was I? Okay, so Thanos, he wants in the comic book, he wants these stones and to become this god, and he eventually ends up getting it. The superheroes go after him. It's a different story than is told in the movies, but it's very similar. Now, in the comic book, Gamora gets the Infinity Gauntlet from Thanos, and she wields this power. Da 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 da. But the important part about the comic book is, by the end of the comic book, there's not the end, but close to the end. Adam Warlock comes in. Adam Warlock is actually, it's not the end of the comic book. It's throughout the comic. He's kind of in the beginning in a kind of like a cocoon, and later on he's manifest with his elf. And so anyway, he helps to defeat Thanos, and so they they start over, but the Watchers send out sorry, Adam Warlock.
That sounds familiar. The Watchers, anyway.
Yeah, Adam Warlock to go into the world, and this is paraphrasing, but to basically preach a gospel. Why is it always some Adam? Because you got the first Adam, the man, failure. Then you have Christ, the second Adam, who was sinless, perfection, died on the cross for us. This Adam Warlock, you can look it up on the internet. It's in a lot of the comic books. He gets crucified on a cross. Okay, he is a antichrist. He is in place of. He is in place of. Look up the definition for antichrist. In place of, or it's a substitute, right? And so he wields all these demonic powers. Now back to the movie. So this whole Infinity War movie is about the pre-trib rapture, not the post-trib, not the mid-trib, not the pre-wrath, not the partial rapture, the pre-trib rapture. The Gauntlet movie was about that too. I mean, sorry, the comic book was about the pre-trib rapture as well. The sky gods, starting with Odin and the rest of the gods from around culture, Odin was wearing his sacrificial sorrow eye patch of sorrow. Sorry, and he's like they all disappeared in the twinkling of an eye. That's directly from the Bible, right? So you can look this up online. It's easy to find. Okay, and so that's why when the snap happened in the comic book and in the movie, all these people disappear because Thanos is a allegory for God, the Gnostic tale. Now let's fast forward to Endgame. Endgame, everybody is it's more of it starts off depressing and everything. Why? Because all of these people are gone from around the world, from around the universe, and they want to know how to reverse the rapture. That's my words. That's how I translate it. They want to know how to get these people back. And so they try to do it through time travel and all this stuff. So by the end of the movie now, you have Captain Marvel, you have Thanos, you have all the heroes that get snapped back because the Incredible Hulk was able to get the stones from them gathering it through time travel, and so he snaps and brings them all back. And so now you have the Queen of Heaven, who is Captain Marvel, coming to fight Thanos. She's supposed to be one of the most powerful superheroes, and he just he knocks her out. He's just making short work of everybody. So by the time Tony Stark comes and grabs the Infinity Gauntlet, or not the Infinity Gauntlet, but the stones from Thanos, he has to sacrifice, like Christ, himself for the whole of humanity, and snaps. And Thanos is gone. God is basically killed by the Antichrist because
So,
Thanos.
Chris, let's pause. I want to pause right there real
Yeah.
quick. I got a question to ask you. I want you to continue on. First of all, though, I want you to plug your website, all your stuff, as we're just kind of here midway through, because last time we forgot we didn't do it towards the end. So
Yeah.
let everybody know, where can they find you? Where can they find your videos, your teaching, your information, your church, all that stuff?
Sure. I go to church in Las Vegas, Sunrise Bible Church. Our head pastor is Pastor Billy Crone. And sorry, my website is don'tletthemburn.com. You can find me on social media. All over, I'm on almost every video platform. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I'm on places I don't even want to be. So if you're looking for me, you can just find me. Just everything is Don't Let Them Burn, either spelled out like that or one word. It's usually just one word. Don't Let Them Burn, and you'll find everything either through my website. My main source is YouTube, but I'm also on Rumble, and like I said, every other video platform.
The gospel and exposing the darkness is your tagline. Was that right?
Absolutely. Ephesians 11 and 5:11. Sorry, Ephesians 5:11, and then of course exposing, getting the gospel out, because that's the commission. So, where was I now? Okay, so again, the end game, Avengers Endgame, is about destroying God. Thanos is an allegory for God. I can't say it enough. If you go and look into Gnosticism, you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about.
Well, and they set him up as the bad guy.
Right.
Right.
Right. Because it's always about this great catastrophe coming down. Even in the first Avengers movie, it's about these beings raining wrath down on Earth. And Endgame is the Thanos is the new thing, and he's raining down wrath on the planet to take over. So there's a lot of movies like this now. It's not just Endgame. You have the oh my gosh, the one with
the Superman movie, or the what would the Justice League movie was similar.
the Justice League movie is very similar. I mean, by the time that series would have ended, we would have had a being just like Thanos come in to do the same thing, rain wrath down on the planet, and these gods would save us, save humanity. And it's in the Bible where it talks about the kings of the earth and all this stuff, and God laughs at them. But there's another passage where pretty much they turn their weapons on God, to try to shoot them out of the sky. And they're movies that have come out depicting God, Jesus coming back and him getting shot out of the sky. I have a couple videos on this stuff on my channel. I have one talking about aliens, the rapture of the church, and I explained some of the stuff I just explained now, but in a little bit more detail. So it's not a new concept. I talked about Transformers last time. It's the same thing. Megatron is like God, and he came to rain wrath down on the planet. Okay, and I'm not the only person that has seen this.
So,
Okay,
Chris, what, in your opinion, what's going on here? Is this humans studying the Bible, studying the occult, and putting this in there, or do you think it's demonic presence behind them, inspiring them to do this?
I think it's a little bit of both, because some of these guys, even though Catholicism isn't biblical Christianity, they have an issue with God because of how they were treated through Catholicism. And
Mhm.
then you have people that have gone to churches not being treated right or whatnot, or something happened in their life and they're just mad at God and they put out all that energy through the movies. But you also have these writers guild that where they really they learn a lot of stuff there, and some of it's occultic stuff. I mean, when you talk about avatars, archetypes, and all this stuff, when you go into the mystic stuff, you see the same thing, the same exact thing. Avatar is pretty much a embodiment of a god or a messenger, right? Look at Avatar the cartoon. It's mixed up. It's like a couple different cultures mixed up in it. This same thing. It's this god that uses witchcraft, magic, whatever you want to call it, to defeat somebody that seems to be worse than him, right? The Avatar movie. It's about the colonial Earth people coming to uh, dig resources from a planet, and they're destroying the villagers, and this crippled guy has to go into an avatar, a body, transhumanism, transfer his soul into a body to go and relate to the people, and he falls in love with one of them. So the concepts are there continually. And the new Avatar movie's coming out soon. So yeah, but I definitely believe, like I said before, look up Grant Morrison real quick for people that don't know. You can look him up. Like I said before, he's one of the biggest
Grant
comic book.
Morrison on like Wikipedia or something?
It's better if you probably look into like Google or DuckDuckGo for the pictures, so they
Okay.
can see some of the stuff he. Okay, there was a TV series that just came out, man, on Netflix a couple months ago. Very big. Sandman, but that wasn't made by Grant Morrison. It was made by Neil Gaiman, and Neil Gaiman is another one of these guys that write all these novels and comic books sometimes too. And I haven't found like stuff that he said personally that makes me say, there's the connection with the demonic. But just reading his material, like, whoa, this guy has studied a lot of mythology. He's never fair to the God of the Bible, but everybody else gets uplifted. He had a TV show called American Gods, and I'd never really heard of him before that. So I said, I know this series is going to be demonic, but I got to report on it somehow, right?
There you
And
go. And there's this
there's Grant
picture.
Morrison. There's Grant Morrison. I have the book Super Gods. I have there's a couple interviews sorry, not interviews, but events that he put on online, or it's recorded, and he tells the audience he doesn't hide this stuff, okay? I'm not making this stuff up. He tells the audience about his demonic trips and what happens, what they tell him, and how he puts them in the comic book. So it's nothing, no secret here, right? Now, Grant Morrison, like I said, American Gods. I started watching this thing, but I didn't know much about some of the gods he put in there. But when I started researching, like, the white, the buffalo, and this and that, I get it now. The more Norse mythology and even Thor and all this stuff is in there, but it's made in a modern sense because in that movie, the old gods are being forgotten, right? And
This is another picture? Wow.
yeah, that's Grant Morrison.
And
Yeah,
if that's not Photoshop, then he's wearing the personalized symbol of Alice or of Anton LaVey.
yeah. I'm telling you, he doesn't hide it. Even if it's not photoshopped, you can find. I'm pretty sure you can find other things,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Um, so all right, so the American Gods is about The old gods are being forgotten, and Odin is trying to lead them into a war with the new gods. The new gods is technology, TV, the internet, and on and on. And it actually makes a good case actually for what we're doing right now with technology and how it's pretty much we're focused on it all day on the phones, on the internet, whatever, TV. It makes a good case of worship. That was the main focus of the first season. Then it went off into some other stuff later on.
So,
So
Chris, where's all this going? What is the agenda?
mhm.
Are they grooming us, or are they just throwing it out in our face, or this is just their religion? They love bragging about what they're doing, and they love blaspheming God, or what do you think it is?
I think on in secret that's a lot of it. Um, because we're in a post Christian world now. Christianity is not the main religion anymore. I mean, like I said, you can't count Catholicism because it's not biblical Christianity, and that's a whole nother rabbit hole, right? You subtract Mormonism, you subtract Jehovah Witness, you subtract Seventh Day Adventists, you subtract any other thing, anything that says it's Jesus Christ and this, and Jesus Christ and that, or
I
this.
was at a family function a few weeks ago, and we were playing a game, and one of the questions was how many people in the UK during the census of whatever year identified as Jedi.
Oh yeah,
And we weren't even close. It was in the thousands.
yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah, because that is a new religion now.
right.
It's an official religion for people that don't know. So to your question, I believe that a lot of these people are not just putting their nightmares in our movies and in our comic books, but they're also channeling spirits because a lot of them identify with the new age or some other thing. You know, I can't say all because I've looked at some comic book writers that they even respect Christianity to a sense. They're not really they're just trying to make fun comic books. But for the people that are the bigger names, it gets deep, man. Look up Alan Moore really quick.
Alan
Alan Moore.
Moore, yeah.
Yeah. And we talked about
V for Vendetta and the Watchers, yeah.
yeah, people need to see his face so that they could start to identify.
Yeah, this guy is
He's
dark.
dark. Yeah. Um, the Dark Knight came from him. V for Vendetta, League of Extraordinary Men, The Watchmen, and a few other comic books. Um, Even some recent stuff too. I thought he was dead, but I don't think he's dead.
I think
Um,
he's still around, but um yeah, he doesn't look like a social butterfly. He looks like a hermit that lives out in a tree somewhere.
I mean, if you just listen to some of his interviews, he doesn't hide this stuff.
No, but I mean, he looks like a wizard, but he's actually a very popular comic book creator.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And if I were to put a political leaning on him, I would call him more of a uh, lefty in a sense, but not like far left, the crazy type,
Mhm.
but somewhat more like a classic liberal, but he's into witchcraft.
Right.
Um,
Well, look at V for Vendetta. Um, you
Another
know,
Gnostic.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So the
The
political, yeah.
the mask that everyone wears, that's Satan.
Mhm.
The girl in the movie's Eve, and he's trying to break her free from the holds of God in the garden. Aleister Crowley is even in the comic book. I mean, you can't
So
make it up.
no, wait, isn't her name really Eve in the movie or Evie?
Yes, yeah, yeah, something like that. Yeah, yeah. She's Eve.
Gosh,
Yeah,
you are, folks. We're talking to Chris Taylor. Don't let them burn tonight. He is blowing my mind because this is stuff that we're all familiar with. It's part of pop culture. Even if you don't watch the movies, you can see the trailers, you can see the posters, and all of this stuff is connected. You can kind of get an idea about it. But Chris, it almost seems to me like there is a radical, aggressive, satanic agenda
Yes.
to groom us, to throw this stuff out there. And I realize these connections, but you are uncovering just these I some deep stuff, but some obvious stuff as well.
Yeah.
So wow. Anyway, please continue.
I mean, before I even heard any of this, I never knew about no Gnosticism. I didn't know what that was, you know. And then when I first heard the term, I was like, "What's that?" No, oh, the seeking of secret knowledge. Secret knowledge. Everyone's after some secret knowledge, you know. They wanna have so much knowledge built up in their head that they become like God. You know, when you look at the technology coming our way, we're gonna be able to download books into our brains. I mean, hey, give me 300,000 books, put them right here, right now, and I'll know exactly what to think about. You know, I'll learn how to fly, like in the Matrix. I learned how to fly a helicopter. Matrix was another Gnostic movie. What's his name? The main character, Neo. Neo is not the good guy. He's Satan. Smith is Jesus. You have to unravel the whole story in the Gnostic sense. Everyone was rooting for who?
Neo.
Neo. And the whole thing with the robots and everything, it's similar to what's going on right now. How everything is leading towards what people call giga death. Even though I don't believe we're going to get there, I think Jesus Christ is going to come back before that. It's going to lead to giga death, where the artificial intelligence becomes so powerful worldwide that humanity can't stand a chance. But they're going to need a power source, right? And in the prequel for the Matrix, this whole artificial intelligence thing, we had robots in our houses, and they were everywhere. They were our companions, and then we treated them wrong, and they turned on us. And guess what happened? We tried to take out their power source. You know how? By blocking out the sun. Who's trying to block out the sun right now?
Mhm.
Starts with Bill, ends with Gates,
Right.
right? You can look that up for people who don't believe me.
Yeah,
They're
and
trying
he's
to,
got, hey folks, leave him alone. He's got a good reason for doing it. He knows what he's doing.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Dr. Gates. But anyway, you see all these parallels to reality. But the you know, some of the best forms of storytelling are the ones with reality woven in. You know, just like Star Wars, it's pretty much space Nazis versus space witches. If
Mhm.
you put in a plain form, the Force, witchcraft, you got the good witches and the bad witches, the light side and the dark side. But you got these Nazis that want to kill everybody. You know, the stormtroopers and all this stuff. Simple format.
Space
That's all.
wizards, yeah, against Nazis. Space
Exactly.
wizards against space Nazis. Yeah, I never thought about it that way, but yeah.
So, let me see here now. Did we leave anything that we should have?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously there's a lot. You said you were going to talk about Loki.
Okay, so the reason I want to talk about Loki is because, okay, in Loki, the variant of Loki, the Loki that you know from the regular Marvel universe is dead. Okay, this variant comes in, and when they were time traveling, and he takes up the cube, the Tesseract, which is a real name for a real thing, supposedly in the occult, and so it transfers him to another dimension, and anyway ends up in the TVA, which is a dimensional city made up by this guy that tracks the parallel universes, the threads that form when the variant is formed. And so these when a variant is formed, these threads, these alternate timelines start to happen. That's the simple explanation. So they wanted to kill Loki, the new variant. Anyway, fast forward. Well, okay, by the way, in Norse mythology, and you can look this up online and through any pagan history book, Loki is the devil. He's another version of the devil, just like Thor is another version of the devil. Okay, Thor is Baal. So he has a version of himself, a female version. I can't remember her name right now. but she's also the devil. And in certain pagan myths, Lilith is a version of the devil, female version. Okay, so anyway, the point I was getting to is there's this city in one of the alternate universes where they have the one in there called the, oh my gosh, what's the name? The though he who remains, right?
Mhm.
Now tell me this isn't the version of God. He's the one that created all this stuff. You got Satan going up in there into his domain with another version of Satan, two Satans going up there to pretty much kill him. And they have a talk with him. He's a variant of a person called Kang the Destroyer. And Kang, he does all this mischief through time and whatnot. But remember the allegory, remember the Gnostic themes, okay? And so when they kill he who remains, all of these variant universes started forming. He's the one that created the whole thing now. And all of a sudden, boom, all of these multiverse strings started forming, right? Out of what you would say thin air. So that's why I brought that up, because it's another allegory towards God,
Excuse me.
the devil, and the bigger reality. So I know I probably stepped on a few toes tonight, but
Well, you know, so we talked about, I mean, and we could go on talking about this, and I'm thinking of connections. Um, I I remember. Okay, let me give you one of the connections, the type of things that I've tracked. Okay, not
uh-huh.
only in Marvel movies but in other movies. The day that Captain America came out was also the same day that there was a shooting in Oslo, Norway, and
Mhm.
part of the film takes place or mentions Oslo, Norway, which is kind of a lot of people will say, well, that's coincidental. You know what I'm saying? But there was a significance, okay, about mentioning Oslo in this film, Captain America: The First Avenger. And on the day that it came out in theaters was the
Mhm.
day that there was that shooting. If anybody remembers this, it was over 10 years ago now. This guy went up and shot up all these kids.
Yeah.
So,
It's
we see these kind of things, like look at the Batman movie or the Dark Knight movie and the connection to Sandy Hook. On the map, the fictional map of Gotham, for the first time ever, one of the spots on the map was titled Sandy Hook.
uh-huh.
There's a lot of fictitious maps of Gotham, but Sandy Hook was never on the map, right?
Right. Yeah.
That's interesting because in the movie, during the premiere of The Dark Knight, there was, of course, the theater shooting in Colorado. So not only, is everything very purposeful in the creating of these movies and the story and the placement of everything. Like, Chris, you mentioned The Matrix. In the movie The Matrix, okay, Neo's passport. Okay, the movie came out in 89. No.
Oh
When did
no.
it come out? In 98, I think. But
Yeah.
his passport expired what date? 9/11, 2001. So
Yeah.
2 years before the movie or before the event of 9/11, they called it. Okay, yeah, and you can look at the passport here. Um, the expiration of his passport was 9/11, the day of the attack. Okay, the very famous 9/11 attack was on the passport. So
Oh,
we can see all of these things, before they even happen in films, okay, or as they're happening, and the
I,
connection. So
you
anyway, I could go on. There's
know.
okay. So can we? What do you recommend, or maybe not, obviously you've already said it, it's between you and God. Okay, we live in a culture that unless you're going to lock yourself up in a tower and become a monk somewhere, this culture affects us. Okay, even if we don't watch the movies, it affects somebody in our family. Okay, it affects somebody in our neighborhood, somebody at our church. I personally don't believe in running away from it. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
um, we talk about it. I use these films, to teach my son about the Nephilim. We have discussions about these things.
Yeah.
Okay, afterwards. I can't think of a movie that we've watched, whether it was Superman or one of the Marvel movies, where it didn't create a very fun discussion, and
Right.
going into the Bible
Yeah.
when it comes to this stuff. But
Yeah.
anyway,
That
um,
you 2 points. Well, first, can we break down Superman before we get off?
yeah.
Okay, but before that, what you're talking about, seeing these things that seem like coincidence. Now, we can't prove it in every instance, but one of the laws in Satanism, one of the laws is the law of reversals that we've just talked Nazism, reverse, and this comes in different formats, different ways of them reversing it. You could be people walking backwards, whatever. But the other thing is, you have to show people what you're going to do before you do it. And if they don't um, uh, do something about it, then oh well, we told you, you know. And we see it all the time. We saw Event 201, didn't we? We
Mhm.
saw you saw the thing in the Matrix, and we see stuff on the Simpsons and all over the place, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's not far
Well,
fetched.
and people will watch The Simpsons trying to figure out what they're going to do next.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, who could make up Donald Trump becoming the president, and it was on The Simpsons so long ago.
So, okay, I want to tell you a story real quick, Chris. One time, my son walked into my office and caught me watching a Lil Wayne video. And he's like, "What are you doing watching that?" Right?
Yeah,
So, and I told him, and this was the truth, Chris. I said, "I'm watching this to see if there's any clues in here about crazy things that are going to happen." Well, I can't remember the name of the song, but that was the video where they had all of these skeletons in the theater. Okay. And it was the exact same amount of people that were shot in the theater at the Batman shooting.
yes,
So,
yeah,
and there were several things in that video. Okay.
yeah.
Which I believe came out before the shooting, if I remember correctly. But anyway, yeah.
Well, I'll give you another one. Gotham, the TV series about young Bruce Wayne,
Mhm.
right? The Joker came into the series early on, and there were some murders going on. So they came to a scene now where the person is kind of, if I remember clearly, they were kind of like going through the names of the victims or whatever. And in my mind, I said, I bet it's 13 victims. Guess what it was? 13 victims.
Wow.
I was like, wow, you just can't get around this stuff, man. Because, there are a lot of Satanism or Satanists in Hollywood. Not everybody, but they consult witches for horror movies. They consult Satanism or Satanists for different aesthetics to make sure it looks right, even in a horror movie. So, and you can find this online. It's on MTV. It's MTV website if they still have it up. So it's not something that's unusual, but we wouldn't think about it. We wouldn't consider them actually doing that, but they do, you know. And so some of the people writing these scripts, like from studios like A24 and others, they are there's no there's no way you get so much stuff right. I mean, I understand you can go and research and do all this stuff. I get it, but some of
Mhm.
it is just way too deep into the archives, man. To be just a coincidence.
So
And
yeah, and
yeah,
Chris, we're not even bringing up the political and military,
CIA
involvement,
liaisons.
like how they will, the military will allow them to use a base or
Uh,
certain, aspects for their film. But if they say, "Hey, will you put this in the movie?" You know what I'm saying?
right.
I mean, the whole 9/11 scenario was laid out in the Lone Gunman series, which was a spinoff of the X-Files.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah, there was something else I was gonna say. It slipped my mind. Anyway,
yeah. The CIA as a liaisons office from the 50s, I believe. At that time, it was about communism coming into the country. So the alien movies of those days was about communism.
Mhm.
Now it's something totally different. Now it's a different agenda. But the CIA, for most scripts, maybe not all, but most scripts, they have to approve what's in the script because they can't make America look bad or the CIA look bad or whatever. And they kind of turn the narrative where they want it to go, and that's it. You know.
Right.
So you're
So
accurate on that.
So another connection I was going to mention was in the Dark. I think it was the Dark Knight, where Batman is using all this technology to try to track the Joker, and he's breaking the law by going on people's phones. Well, what was going on at the same time? What was making news? And he justified it by, well, we got to catch this bad guy. And the
Yeah,
same thing was hitting the news where we found out that our government was doing the same thing to us.
yeah, yeah. And sometimes you can't tell if the director, writer is trying to tell us something good,
Mhm.
exposing something, or they're part of the problem.
Right.
We got to figure that out sometimes. So Superman. All right. So Superman was created by two Jewish kids, and
From Cleveland. I think they were
um,
from Cleveland, Ohio.
shush, from Cleveland. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So, um, the first iteration, the supposed S on his chest was not an S; it was a serpent. Okay, he was an evil guy. He was not the Superman we know today. He came to destroy the planet. Now there are aspects of it still in the lore. Um and there were some spin-offs, some copycats that made like a space cop and all this stuff. So anyway, let's get to something more modern. He gained his powers over time. Different writers would add to him and whatnot. But that S on his chest, sometimes it said that it's a peace symbol, but it's a dragon. Okay, even with the Man of Steel movie, look at the S. It's a dragon. Okay, and who's the dragon again? Satan or the Antichrist, right? Depending on who's translating, interpreting what you're looking at. Now, he comes from a cryptic place, a secret place. What did we talk about a minute ago? Secret knowledge, right? It's cryptic. His father is El, you know.
Uh-huh.
Um, he is the son of that father that comes from a heavenly place. He was sent to humanity to be their savior, right? The Jesus allegories, I'm not making this up. Secular people know this, professors know this. I'm not making it up. It's the Jesus allegory after the reconstruction of this evil dude. So he comes to in the Man of Steel movie. All of the ancestor worship again. All of the ancestors, the genealogy of his entire race is put into his cells, hidden in his cells, right? On that planet, they were doing genetic manipulation, cloning, designer babies, the things that you hear about in the news today. That was on Krypton. Okay. And so Superman, the original intent of his father, who is now manifested in an artificial intelligence, it's nothing new. It was in the original Superman movie. He sent him to pretty much overtake the planet, but he doesn't know that, right? So Zod, who sounds like God, and I don't know if the original intent was to make this guy sound like God. His name is Zod. They were put into this trifecta, this trinity, right? Was put in, they did a crime, and they were put inside of the Phantom Zone. And so by some anomaly, they were released from the Phantom
So are you
Zone.
talking about the movies or the comic books now?
Movie. I'm talking about the Man of Steel movie right now, but this stuff is in
Okay.
the comics as well.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so so in this iteration, you have the crazy Nazi doctor. He sounds like a Nazi, and Zod is coming to fulfill what he believes should be the master race on because their whole entire planet got wiped out by a disaster, right? And so he's like, where we gotta find out where this the codex. Where's the codex? We got to find the codex. And in this movie, Superman is just turning into Superman, so he's not wise as he should be, and all that stuff. So anyway, The themes are running in here that you're seeing in a lot of sci-fi movies, but it's no coincidence because our world is moving towards genetic manipulation, and you're seeing it manifested in today. 2 years ago, something hit the planet that forced people to do something they didn't want to do. This is accurate. It is changing the DNA of people. Okay. I heard about that before that thing hit. Okay. I heard
Mhm.
about the genetic thing that was coming in 2019, in October 2019. So when it finally hit, I said, that thing I heard about is coming soon. Because when I heard about it, it was supposed to be globally mandated, and the person doing the show got wind of it. And now what happened? Okay, so we all know what happened there. Okay,
Mhm.
so our world is moving towards designer babies. Zod was a designer baby. He was engineered to be a soldier. Then you had people engineered to be scientists, and on and on and on. So they find out where Kal-El is, the son of God, or son of El, right?
Mhm.
And they want to get the codex from him. They find out that the codex is in his blood. They thought it was in his ship, and so then they do like a mind, uh, this telekinesis, mind meld, whatever you want to call it. And Zod and Kal-El are in this reality inside the mind, and he tells him, "Hey, look, man, your father he sent you here to pretty much make our race again." And Kal-El's like, "So what's going to happen to the humans?" Well, you see all them skulls you're standing on, right? So he came to make a hybrid that would make other Superman. The idea of a Superman, a super race, came from uh, Nietzsche. He talked about the Ubermensch. Not he was also influenced by evolution. So was Hitler, and Hitler was also into what we call today the Green New Deal, the environmentalism, the occult, the worship of the earth, and stuff like that. Okay, so um, when you look at this whole thing, even in the space when Kal-El breaks out from his prison to go save Lewis because she's fallen to the earth, he stretches out his hand again like he's on a cross, and then flies down to the earth to go save her. So all these themes are in there. You know, it takes quite a while to actually break down the whole Superman character, but this movie pretty much shows you that he is an antichrist, even though it's for freedom and the American way and all this stuff. Ultimately, when you take off the facade, he is an antichrist. He is a God man. He is the replacement for Jesus Christ.
Folks, you are watching Chris Taylor, and his analysis is just amazing. You got to check out his YouTube channel. Don't let them burn. Okay. He's got all kinds of stuff. He's been doing this for years. He's been talking about this stuff for a long time. So, Chris, what about like, and I was trying to ask this a little bit ago. I didn't know how to ask it.
Okay.
Obviously, God's word is our source for truth, for all truth. Okay, and it exposes all these things, and nothing stands up in the light of Scripture. Okay, but is this everywhere? I mean, it what am I trying to say here? I mentioned last time I talked about this guy Eric July and the Rippaverse. Okay,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
what are your thoughts about him? I mean, this guy's not a Christian. At least he seems to be anti woke. But I mean, are we going to end up the same way, same place with this guy and what he's doing?
Well, you know, as I explained on the last show, we're influenced by this world that we're thrusted into. We were all thrusted into a world that is at war with God, and God sent His Son to get us to escape that reality in the sense of now we have a relationship with Him. We can go before the throne and pray and all this stuff, and then one day we'll have this millennium kingdom, and from after that, after the judgment, we'll have the eternal state, right? Adam and Eve, they were created perfect. Everything was perfect when God created it, you know. And now after the fall, we everything that we are a part of today is a part of the curse. The deserts that are forming all over the world, they're part of the curse. The planet is cursed. The animals are cursed. Death is a curse. Sickness is a curse. The only way to escape that is through Jesus Christ. So we are all influenced by something once we enter the planet. It could be religion, the occult, molestations, all these things that we could think of that we've probably personally went through in our life. And so in this generation of being flooded with media, we're influenced. So as I explained before, I did my own cartoon characters. I even had a character called Kronos. I never read about Kronos, you know, and it turns out it's a word for time, or it's also a word for Satan. You know, I mean, come on, you know, I can't make that up. I didn't know about Kronos, but I probably heard it somewhere and didn't in my subconscious. Now I'm bringing it back out on a paper, and so I haven't read his comic book, but I believe he's doing something good in the sense of he's not trying to continue the perversion of our culture, because they're trying to dehumanize our culture. They're
Mhm.
trying to demoralize us and make us ultimately into a serf class, a slave class, a slave class, and automatons, right? For those that don't know what automatons, it's like a robot. You know, you don't make your own decision; they make the decisions for you. Okay, and automatons are easy to control. Once you're demoralized, once you're demonized, once you're dehumanized, they can do whatever they want to you. So I don't believe he's on that train.
Well, and I would agree with you on that. So, if anybody that doesn't know who Eric July is in the Ripperverse, here's a guy who is he grew up reading comic books, loves comic books, but then he saw what all this woke agenda was doing to it, and he was like, you know what? Yeah, I don't like it, and I'm gonna do my own comic book, and that's what he did. And he came up with this list of rules where he's not going to break these rules, and he's going to ask people to hold him accountable to what he's doing. And he thinks it's just a complete. I'm not going to use any of his language, but yeah, he's not pleased with the way things are going. Anyway, yeah. So
Yeah,
I think it's interesting, and he raised people supported him so much. How much money did he like 2 or 3 million?
yeah. The last time I saw, and I haven't seen after, but he definitely was at a $3 million point the
Yeah.
last time I checked. And he's probably up to four or more now because
So
it became so
yeah,
popular.
he just launched out. He was a singer of a hardcore band. He
Yeah,
launched out doing this show, and then he had this what do you call it, Kickstarter for his comic book company, and it blew up.
yeah.
He's way surpassed his $100,000 mark, right? Was that what the goal?
Yeah, they tried to cancel him. Yeah, it was around
Yeah,
$100,000. And here's the thing, he produced and printed the book before he even launched that campaign.
yeah,
The campaign didn't pay for it. That's incredible.
right,
Yeah, like
right, yeah.
yeah,
So yeah, there you go.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, so I think it's a good thing. I mean, it's going to be secular. We can't run away from that.
right.
But
Well, it's encouraging, Chris, because
yeah,
people are willing to support something that's not mainstream and it's not
right.
Hollywood produced.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because I don't know if I mentioned this before, but what the whole woke mob is doing, and it's not just them. It's there's some powers pulling the string. You know the names. Uh,
Mhm.
Satan came to kill, steal, and destroy. That's what communism does. That's what Marxism does. Uh, Satanism, Luciferianism, kill, steal, and destroy. Why they can't make anything on their own? I mean, they take Star Wars, destroy it. They're taking Marvel now and destroying it. The Marvel comic book company, not the movie, but the comic book company and DC, the comic book company, are in the trash because all of it is woke now. Okay, they made woke Star Wars in the comic books now, so
These
they're
movies are failing.
failing. Yes, yes, yes. Phase 4 of Marvel is in tank. Is only Doctor Strange did good, Spider-Man did good, and maybe Wakanda. But those are the two saving graces of stage 4, right? Phase 4. Sorry. So and now they're like, oh well, we might start to pull back on that. You don't. I've seen Target lose $10 billion. Why? Because of the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
And they said they didn't care. Why?
Yes.
Because there's a bigger agenda, you
Yes.
know? And it goes back to what I said earlier: kill, steal, destroy, dehumanize, demonize, demoralize.
And there's the page. The goal was $100,000. It's 3.7 million
There we go. Yeah, I knew it was
is
close to four.
what he made. And I tell you what, it couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. Like I've been watching him for a few years just because I really appreciate his analysis.
Yeah.
And he's a I don't know how I want to describe him politically. Definitely a libertarian type
Yeah. Yeah.
more, and just very, um, I don't know if I want to call him a purist, but very, uh, libertarian in his views.
Yeah,
So
definitely. Yeah. Yeah. And he's got a bigger following than we think he has too, because he's been on a couple major TV shows doing analysis on there too. But
yeah,
yeah, I think what he's doing is worthy because okay, let me give you something that I think about a lot. And I'll ask you a question and I'll give you my analysis.
okay.
Do you think that the trajectory that America is on, um, the cultural trajectory, the darkness, Satanism, the all of this nasty stuff that we could bring up, do you think it's natural? Natural in the sense of this is the course of America. This is the natural course of America.
Well, I feel like you're setting me up here, but I'm gonna say my automatic response is I feel like it's decadence. It's just the natural decline of morals, and I mean, there's a root to it, we can look at a lot of things, but when I was in high school, um, it was weird. It's like you found some kind of a leprechaun when you found somebody that never been to a church before. I
Yeah.
remember we were all sitting around in high school, and there was a girl in our Spanish class that had never went to church, and we're like, "What? You never even visited a church before?" She's like, "No, I never been to church." But now it's backwards, and if you go to church, then you're the leprechaun. So I mean, I think that plays a lot into it. So do I think it's natural? I'd say it's natural when you turn your back on God, but anyway.
Right. Okay, so this is my take. America, once you do the research, going back, starting with the Crowleys and the Blavatskys and all this stuff, and the United Nations, Church of Satan, the OTO, Ordo Templi Orientis,
Mhm.
and a few other things. We saw a couple of flashpoints, right? Starting with some of the rock and roll music. Then we got into the whole sexual revolution, another flashpoint. Evolution was introduced in the 1800s, I believe. That was a major flashpoint. So from all this stuff, Bibles being taken out of the school, notice that these things are natural, right?
Right.
And once these things happen, the crime rate, pregnancy rate, premarital sex rate, all this stuff went like a hockey stick. Okay, and we still didn't necessarily feel the brunt of it until generation generation or two later. And so we were okay. So also 1940 something, we had the school that was kicked out of the Germany and came to America, the Frankfurt School, and from them came a lot of these underground socialist networks. So that's another flashpoint. That's 1940 something. And so from there we started getting these plants in America that were Marxist, socialist, communist, whatever you want to call them, whether it's the Black Panthers, Nation of Islam, whatever. They all have elements of it. Okay. And so in the 80s, that's where they started getting into the public school system heavily. Not they were there, but it started teaching, guess what? CRT,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it was very minimal. Okay. And then so we saw it grow. We didn't know, some people knew it was there, but we didn't know it. But then we have MTV come in and we started, that started to change the culture, but it still has elements of what I just talked about earlier. The Crowleyism and all this stuff. And so the movie started getting darker. Some of that was natural because of the human heart. But now we're at a time where it's being forced on us. That ain't natural. We're
Mm-hmm.
being led down a corridor of death by demonic beings. Because I just don't believe, if I believe, the church was also infiltrated with Marxism. From early, I don't want to get the date wrong, man. I think it was like around the 30s or 40s somewhere. And it was started being infiltrated with Marxism through the Methodist Church and other denominations, but slowly. And that's why today you see some of the people that you thought were solid preachers are now saying, they're going for BLM and the woke stuff. I'm like, how? How do you mix that with the Bible? Because they were infiltrated so long ago.
Yeah.
So that's why I asked you that question, because it makes no sense to me that we would go down this rapid dark path just naturally. When you look at the Aztecs and the Mayans and people like that, their whole civilizations disappeared. You know what? Why they disappeared? It was a judgment of God. That's when they started sacrificing babies and pulling the hearts out of people and decadent sex. The alphabet people type stuff was in some of these areas in Greece and other places. All of these places were judged, and they're not
Well,
around anymore.
and even in the book of Josephus, there's accounts of the alphabet uh, people back then. Chris, I really like what you just did, the way you asked me that question. Knowing what I know, I'm like, why didn't I answer that? Because I'm familiar with all these influences. You know what I'm saying? That you're talking about. But I want to, I guess I wanted to answer in a way that made sense to me. But the conspiracy theorist side of me is there. There are definite agendas of people that are purposely putting this information. Look at Dewey in the education system. I just read a book a couple years ago. The Culture War in America or something like that by can't remember his name, Bob Rosio. That
Okay.
book, Chris, was as if it was written this year in 2022, but it was written back in the 80s, and it told what was going to happen. And I'm sitting there reading this book, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And he's predicting what's going to happen because what happened before is similar to like a Francis Schaeffer. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
carry on.
So I want to show everybody this book right here. Socialism. Can you hear me? Socialism: The Real History from Plato to Present, by how the deep state capitalizes on crisis to consolidate control, by William J. Federer. I,
Okay.
I I did a sermon at my church, and I had to get all these. I couldn't even get to the whole book, but in that sermon I went all the way back to Adam and Eve, then jumped a couple flashpoints in history all the way up to like the 1800s and evolution, all this stuff. And by the end of it, I was exposing BLM and all this weird stuff. But here's the one thing, and I know we're talking about comic books and all that, but we gotta say it, right?
Mm-hmm.
the whole thing about black and white. You see this book? It's called Traced, right?
Hmm.
Uh, Answers in Genesis promotes this book. This is a major discovery through the history of man and population growth. And pretty much, I mean, we already technically know it in our hearts. There's only one race,
Right.
but we are so close to each other. It's ridiculous. Like, say for instance, people in Germany and France, they could be cousins, direct cousins, and don't even know it because they're so close to each other. People in Tennessee and Georgia could be directly we mix so much we don't even know. And in every ethnicity, I told the audience that the color of your skin doesn't determine your ethnicity, because in every ethnic group there's a darker skin and a lighter skin. And what's called albinism one is like you would be albinism one, and the what we know as albinos, that's albinism two. And that's where you get the yellow hair and the more translucent skin or whatever. So all of us are directly related, but evolution told made it seem like all of us came sprouted up on different lands, Africa, Europe, whatever.
Hmm.
There's some people that are so related to Indians, like from India, that you can't tell except for the skin color. That's it.
Hmm.
So this book really traces that. And there's a comic book called Universe X, Paradise X, Earth X. And in this comic book, I think you're gonna like this one. The Watcher, right, is on the moon with a robot. The robot thinks he's human, right? And the Watcher tries to deconstruct the robot's brain, an allegory for a human, that the God that you believe in, it's not real. Let me tell you what happened. The celestials, the gods, came down and seeded the planet, and through evolutionary process, um, that's where we have the seed, the gene of the germination of the seed of the celestials going through mankind. So when you see us go from apes, which we didn't, from apes to humans to demigods like Hercules and whatever, that was all natural. But then it had to go back down. And then later on, as time progresses, we see the wars, we see the dark ages, and da 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 da. Then when we get to modern times, we start to see the Captain Americas. When they gave him the serum, it activated the gene. When you see Wolverine, it activated the gene. The trauma, the scientific experiment, whatever it is that they use to create superheroes, all activated because the seed of the celestials is in the planet. So you see how evolution can make so many threads.
Yeah.
Uh
Yeah.
oh, it looks like this is Tom's show. It looks like Tom got disconnected. I guess he'll
I'm
jump back in.
I'm here.
So
Can you
for
see
those
me?
that are still watching, you should go and look at this comic book. You can find it online if you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
The Earth X, Universe X, Paradise X. And by the time the book is pretty much done, most of the world is full of superheroes. So some people don't matter anymore.
Okay, hey, and it looks like I don't know what's going on over there in Las Vegas, but something weird is happening. Chris thought I was gone, but it looks like he is the one disappearing on us. So, folks, let me just say this. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. We are up over 1,100, over 1,100 now, and it keeps climbing. More and more people keep finding about this channel, finding out about this channel. Daily, weekly, monthly. We are going to be down next week, but I am working on some interviews that I recorded a month ago with somebody that worked very close with Russ Dizdar for many, many years. So I'm going to be releasing that sometime next week. It's kind of cool because he shares some personal stories with Russ, and we go back to the church that Russ preached at, and he even shows a lot of the old newsletters, the Shatter newsletter that Russ used to put out and that they used to send out everywhere. So it was really, really cool to meet him. I've been sitting on these interviews for a while. I haven't had time to put them out, but we're going to release them next week. That way you have a little bit of something to tie you over until we come back in January, folks. But again, thank you for giving us a thumbs up, all that stuff that you do. I don't know what's going on with Chris out there, but we're just going to give him a minute or two. But this guy blows my mind, and he's so good at identifying these connections. Okay. I don't know what to say. I mean, if you grew up in America, Superman, Batman, that's just part of life. Okay. It's like baseball and apple pie, being an American, living in the West. But it's interesting to see Chris, expose the truth and the actual inspiration for what is really behind these comic books and these movies and books and so on and so forth. So anyway, yeah, I'm really just kind of blown away by his analysis, and I think we're going to have Chris back as much as possible. We actually had a mix-up tonight, and he sent me a link, and I sent him a link, and he was waiting on me to come over to his channel. So, and I was like, "Hey, Chris, I don't know what's going on, but I have a regular show on Monday nights, and we got some people that are waiting on us." So I didn't, yeah. Anyway, and he was gracious enough to say, "Okay, I'm going to be on over there." But anyway, Chris Taylor, don't let them burn. His links are in the show notes below. Don't forget his YouTube. I think Katie usually she usually collects all the data, puts it down below for us to go check out. And she even has the ISBN for Federer's socialism book. So here's Chris. Here's Chris coming back on. But anyway, Chris, you thought I was disappearing. It was actually you. But we're just. I want to give you just kind of the final word to be able to wrap up on this subject. We have covered so much stuff tonight. Where can you just, for anybody, obviously go back to your channel, go back to YouTube channel, don't let them burn. But where else? I mean, where do you do your research?
Oh, a lot of books, and I watched some DVDs at the time around between 2009 and 2015. I watched a lot of documentaries on the Masons, on Gnosticism, on the American founding fathers, on movies. There's one called Hollywood Exposed, Hollywood Exposed 1 and 2. And there's also A Lamp in the Dark. There's so many.
Okay, that's Chris
I have a
Pinto.
video. Yeah. Chris Pinto stuff is good. We might not agree on eschatology, but uh, a lot of his research is good. So just these things started. There's one called Megiddo. This is the Greek term for Armageddon. There is a place called Megiddo. Megiddo 1, the March to Armageddon, and Megiddo 2, New Age. That one right there, I've watched it at least 5 times because there's so much information in there. They trace the New World Order, they trace the New Age, and how the world's being led to pretty much a Tower of Babel mentality. We're being led to worshiping the Antichrist. So I have a video on my channel, part 1 of the documentaries that I recommend. So
Chris, maybe sometime, you can come back and we can talk about music. You seem to know a lot about hip hop music, and I know a little bit about it. I mean, when we're talking about the Masonic influences, one of the first rappers was Grandmaster
Uh-huh.
Flash, right?
Yeah.
So, and we hear these, we hear these stories and we see things all throughout, right? And this goes into not only like just it's not just music, but it's culture, right? It's not
Yeah.
just hip hop music, but it's hip hop culture.
Culture. Yes.
And there's all kinds of entertainment that comes out of that, from comedy to movies to just fashion, right?
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
of this stuff. And we could do another show and talk about all of this other stuff just out of the hip hop culture and how that's influenced it and what kind of effect it's having. It's interesting to me how most of the music today is hip hop influenced, and rock music is kind of gone away.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think? Why do you think that is?
Um, Hip hop is the one underestimated culture, because here's the thing: the culture of hip hop is just that. The music is not hip hop. That's what it was termed after it got into the mainstream. Hip hop is the culture and the culture alone, because there's something called the temple of hip hop, and we can get into that when we do a show on it. But
Well, I think we need to, man.
yeah, because
Um,
to answer your question really quick here, it traveled all over the world when it was being rejected by America. Okay, and then it slowly got his grounds in America, but the corporations twisted it and started introducing all these gangster elements and whatnot, and then pretty much it got into R&B, it got into everything, like you said, because it went worldwide. There's no entertainment that is untouched by hip hop,
right, right.
including orchestration or orchestral music, composing for movies. It's all there. So
Well, and there's a lot that we can talk about because I don't know, when you compare somebody like James Brown to whoever is popular right now, or go back to to the music, the roots of hip hop. And we could talk about jazz. I don't know a lot about jazz, but I know about blues, I know about soul, and I know about Motown.
yeah,
And look where we got now. um it's I don't know, there's a there's a big difference between a Stevie Wonder,
yeah,
and I don't know who to use as an example. A Yay, you know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
Um, I don't even feel like, even though there's inspiration there, it's in a way not even the same
yeah.
planet. But maybe
It's a
you can
hybrid.
straighten me out on that.
It's a hybrid. You know,
Yeah.
the actual rapping. They were even doing that in the Norse the Vikings, where they had these battles with the words. So it's not like, I mean, because we're enclosed in America, we think that black people just made that thing up.
Mhm.
It came up, but even one of the first rappers was, I believe, a gospel rapper. So, but it goes into different cultures, the war of words and whatnot. But you know, it's very important for people to understand what hip hop is and what rap is. They're not the same, right?
Mhm.
Um, and the music it's a hybrid, it's an amalgamation of rock, blues, you know, orchestral music, reggae, and all this stuff, because we literally stole from people to make some of the music, you know. And
Well,
so
yeah, even with the samples, right?
yeah, yeah,
And the
and
beats, yeah.
yeah, until finally people were like, "Oh, you got to clear that sample. You got to pay 2,000 whatever money." So, and now and then from hip hop influenced house, and house influenced hip hop reversal. techno, dubstep, all of these new things that you know about was influenced by the rap music. Even though, yeah.
Folks, Chris Taylor, Don't Let Them Burn. Chris, thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight.
Yes, no problem.
I think everybody's brain is full. So it's time to, it's time to shut this down. And we're going to have to get you to come back in January. Let's do that show about hip hop. And
right.
I think there's going to be a lot to talk about there to keep us busy. So, hey, folks, we will be back tomorrow night. Vicky Joy is going to be back. And don't forget to check out throughtheblack.com. That's where you can find all of our junk, all of our T-shirts, movies, all of that stuff. And we will see you guys tomorrow night. Okay, bye. Hey guys, what's going on? Tom Dunn here from Through the Black. And I want to invite you to go check out the website resistandrescue.com. Resist and Rescue is the campaign that we started at the beginning of last year, and we really kept it rolling coming into this year, just asking everyone to join us in prayer. Prayer mapping your city, prayer mapping your state. To pray for the whole world for one person is kind of overwhelming, and I don't have that kind of faith every day. But if I pray for my city and you pray for your city, your state, and we just target local areas like hospitals, like schools, and just asking God to intervene and praying for churches and asking God to raise up powerful preachers and powerful leaders in our area. We can pray for just kind of the localized needs that we know about. Guys, we want you just to go to resistandrescue.com, get signed up, get your name put on the map. When you go there, you'll see a map, and you'll see all the people that have already signed up and gotten involved, and they're saying, hey, I'm going to be here in this city, in this state, in this country, praying. We want you to do exactly that, to pray, not only just to put your name on the map, but actually intercede and pray for your area, for your city, for your political leaders, whatever the need is. You know more about it than we do. So we hope you check that out. resistandrescue.com. All the information is there, and we want you to get involved. Thanks a lot, guys.